So yeah, my name is Valerie Wolf Gang. I'm Slovenian-based artist but working very international. I'm a visual artist working with multimedia techniques. I'm a director, transdisciplinary researcher and mentor as well. Yeah, I'm working often in the intersection between science and arts. Well, I started as very traditional, I would say, film director. I was studying classic film, but then I was somehow inspired by very experimental films, and from experimental films I realized that art can also be present in space, not just on the screen. So I started doing this various installation art. My films suddenly came out of the screen and became active in space, like on objects. And I was video mapping my films on different objects. And then I started to get very interested in interactive artworks. And if something interactive happens, then new story starts to happen in the gallery. And all this interaction brought me to these very emerging technologies which are often used for some other things. For example, augmented reality or virtual reality or different sensors. And somehow all these crossings of technology and science and art is giving me a lot of inspiration, motivation to just continue the research, to be curious, because ever since I was very young, I was very curious, and I continue to develop my curiosity to continue the work. And I think creating art is like very playful kind of activity for me as well, not just with the goal to be an artist, do art, but just to explore my creativity, and by that then the new artworks emerge and new research is then always created by all this curiosity of mine. I think when I was a child, I was not really thinking in this direction, and when I was growing up, that I would work as an artist. I always dreamed that I would be there was there were three options for me in my dreams always. So first one was, I don't know why, maybe because I have many male cousins and they all wanted to be policemen, and I wanted to be a policewoman. So the second thing was I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals, but soon I realized that this doesn't mean that I will just pet all the animals, but you need to operate them, you work with sick animals, and that was something which is not so romantic, from this profession. And the third one was actually that I will be explorer and an astronaut in a way, and this is connecting with my artwork later on. And then soon enough, I think around when I was 5 years old or 6, I don't remember precisely, my father bought his first digital camera, but since he was often away working abroad, the camera was often left on one shelf. And I started to use it behind everybody's back, and I soon learned how to use it by myself. And I filmed a lot of environment around me, like neighbor's dog or some random things happening around me. And later I asked my father to help me transfer this material to the television, because back in the days there were these cassettes still, which is a bit difficult to use as a really young child. And my father was at first excited about the content, but then soon he realized it's just some random things which are not very worth archiving. He thought I wasn't filming the family, I was filming the dog. Why would we need these cassettes? And he was angry at me a little bit. But somehow I was really attracted to this camera and the movement of the camera, and I think I fell in love in the technology and how to capture these surroundings. And in a way, I think I was exploring another world through the camera, which is like my own position of my thoughts in a way. So I think somehow then organically this camera became part of my life. And also when I was a teenager, I was recording a lot. And then, this material was just piling around. It was these cassettes everywhere. And then slowly I went into viewing these materials and editing. And then, the transition then organically happened. And that's why I entered the film world first. And then slowly from film I entered other medias as well. Well, this little figure was actually, I took it now to the residency for me as a motivation to continue my work in this sense, because I always admired these space explorers and the universe, and also in the metaphorical sense that something is bigger than we think and just our Earth. I always respected people who dare to do something which is unimaginable for, especially for girls, I would say as well. When we were little, they always told us only male can go into this astronaut kind of profession. Me coming from a small country of Slovenia who doesn't even have a space program, it's of course also a challenge. But probably I will not become an astronaut, although I still believe that because I'm quite young, there will be soon this space tourism developing, and I think in a couple of years we will be all able to fly there. Maybe through arts I can sometimes go in the space and do art in space. Why not? My plan, it was actually to focus more on the research, although I wanted to produce some this initial plan I had, but I was really focused before coming here that I would go to these different institutions and I would actually conduct interviews with different people, different scientists and different organizations, live, short interviews, and speaking directly to people working in the connection with some space-related research programs. And I was very much focused on that, so to do the research about my curiosity, what happens with astronauts in space when they look down to Earth for the first time. Before coming to this residency, I was actually studying a lot of interesting materials of interviews of astronauts returning to Earth, and they were talking about this experience when they saw the Earth for the first time from space, and they suddenly experienced this out-of-body kind of feeling, and many of them said that it feels like they're using drugs. And they didn't know why, but the whole experience of looking down to Earth, seeing this planet of ours for the first time gave them this experience. So when I was reading about these experiences, I realized that I also got similar kind of feeling when my body changed, and I suddenly didn't recognize myself in the mirror, and it was in a way similar similar emotions. Three years back, I would say, I was starting working on a project called Fluid. This is one of my previous works, and I was starting to work with neural network technology because I became very much interested into artificial intelligence, and neural network is like one part of this new emerging technology which is becoming, it's entering the arts as well. So the initial work was that I train these neural networks how to write poetry, and because my initial question was, can artificial intelligence be creative on its own? So can it write poems? Through that I created this project that these neural networks start to write poetry. and because I had to delegate some topic to the machines, and just out of, I don't know why, maybe just this curious feeling, I said, okay, I will tell the machine, the computer, to write about healthy lifestyle. So in a couple of months I was feeding the computer with many scientific articles about healthy lifestyle, and the computer, this neural network, slowly started to write this poetry out of healthy lifestyle recommendation, which was a bit bizarre, a bit funny, and also a bit creative at the end. But when I was listening to all these scientific articles and this poetry about healthy lifestyle, I think in a way my own artwork started to brainwash myself, and it created this process in me that maybe I should do something about my life, because before that I was all my life overweight. But I mean, I never really thought a lot about my weight and how I looked, because I carried it around and it was fine. But then I started to implement these changes. I started doing sports, I started to enjoy running, and I lost almost 60 kilograms, so half of the weight is gone. And suddenly over the night, once I realized, I looked myself in the mirror and I was completely different person physically, and all these feelings came to surface, and that's why I started connecting it with the astronauts, because at the same time I was reading these studies and it was connecting a little bit with my own experience. If I'm now thinking about my beginnings, I couldn't even run like 2 minutes, nothing. I mean, I didn't have any fitness level. I was really in a bad shape. So I said to myself, okay, my goal is to run for 5 minutes. This is like the ultimate goal, and when I will achieve this, I will be the happiest person in my life. So after, I think, like 2 or 3 months, I managed to push myself that I would run for 5 minutes. And I was really happy, but then I said, well, if I manage to achieve this 5 minutes, maybe I can do 10, and it's like more. And then, I was pushing myself a lot. And once I reached the 5-kilometer mile, which is around like half an hour running, after that, this thing happened, it triggered in me that I became addicted of running, actually, a little bit. And now I think it is like a drug. When I'm running, I'm not thinking about running, but I'm brainstorming. So whenever I'm running, I'm thinking about new projects or like some fresh new ideas. So when I'm running, I'm not thinking about, oh my God, am I going to survive this? It's hot, I'm sweating, I will die, I will pass out. I'm not thinking about this anymore, although these were the thoughts at the beginning of my sport career, let's call it like that. But yeah, I think running is a nice way if you can find motivation to do it. I would recommend it. It's a really nice process of meditation in a way. Yeah, when I came, I think it was really nice that we managed to go to the GSI Institute. We went to this guided tour, they showed us everything, we shake hands, and it was really normal. But in just like 2 or 3 days after that really short time, this corona thing happened, and I just thought at first that I woke up in some strange dream, bizarre dream. In a way, it felt like the war started, And in Germany, actually, it wasn't so bad at that time. I was more paranoid probably than German people, because I was getting calls from my Italian friends and Slovenian friends about all this quarantine stuff. Here, it didn't happen yet. But I slowly got prepared, and in a couple of days also in Germany things changed. And then a week passed, and the second week passed, and like things went even worse. People started dying, and it was this drama, what will happen. And I was listening a lot of news every day when I woke up. I was listening to the news and podcast about corona, and it was making me so paranoid and anxious. And then I just said to myself, okay, I should just stop listening to the news and stop listening to these podcasts And after this decision, it was better. So I was not so much anxious and paranoid. But yeah, it definitely influenced the whole workflow of me. I realized I will not be able to meet people live, so I was starting to do a lot of these digital meetings. And I actually decided for myself that maybe it's time to do some changes in my art practice. So I started to do analog photography, but because I couldn't work with people, I started to go in nature a lot, documenting different like nature and surroundings. And through that I also again started to write poetry, which is a thing I used to do a lot, but because of so much work in the past years I stopped a little bit. And I started to write a book and many things in the studio, like these photo manipulations, photo montages, mixing of analog and digital. And it was more, now I think it shifted more towards this different mixed media kind of artworks, and definitely more isolated artworks, socially distanced. Nature becomes my muse. Trees, grass, texture, growth, social distancing,
du hast sie, super.
reading poetry to trees, enjoying their company, returning back to basics, feeling the earth and myself again. Actually, in a way, it connects very well with my initial plan of researching the topic of being an astronaut, because this house now became my space station in a way. It felt completely like I'm suddenly in this strange new planet, strange new universe called Corona, let's call it like that. And I'm in the space station, being safe, of course, from these surroundings, but really channeling this feeling of isolation which our astronauts also having in the space. So in a way, I was lucky that this became part of my experience, part of the research. And I think if Corona wouldn't happen, I wouldn't be able to experience that so strong. And the second thing is that because this artist studio is positioned with windows facing the street, like many people were passing by, socially distanced of course. It was really strange because when I was working in different artworks, I was observing the people as well, and I suddenly noticed they are moving differently, you know, everybody's like atoms trying to avoid each other. So in a way, I was observing the society being changed, and at the same time they were always, when they are passing, looking at me indoors, like in a zoo kind of environment. And unfortunately it was like that. And then, you know, it was these different realities. In a way, I was feeling I'm in the space station, these people are observing me. So I was in my head a little bit joking to myself that maybe they're watching live transition from space, me being in the space station. And as also like a special species, an artist working in the studio, it's like also an interesting thing. And yeah, it's definitely an island kind of experience working in this residency, but this time not just being a fiction, but it's the actual reality mixing with the fiction of artwork. Yeah, one of the things which will be shown at the end of the residency is definitely this zine catalog kind of project, which is, I now created it more in a way of being a visual diary of my the whole experience. It's very personal. That's why I decided also for the handwriting, and I will mix it with some text as well and many visual material of these analog approaches I used in medium format, the 360 camera which I often used, And also inside there will be an access to some of my video artworks which I created, and I'm still working on them. So many little short films being created here, of course in these special conditions and in this environment. So, and the whole experience, if I watch it as a whole, I think it was very much oriented into the research of myself as being an artist and what are my next steps for the future, because I think in a way this situation here now with the world changing as well will be I think like a next step in my artworks, because prior to that I think many of my artworks were focused a lot of the social conditions happening in global sense or environment, and I was always in my works they were quite extroverted, so reflecting the different political or cultural happenings inspired by current events. But I think probably after this residency I will shift towards more intimate artworks, and I'm probably now going to be also more open to my intimate space to public, because I think I was often just trying to, let's say, show the mirror to the society in a way through my artworks, because there was some hidden messages about, for example, how technology can be dangerous if it's overused or stuff like that. But now I think I will go more into myself, and I'm sure in the next works I will be more confident to show also deeper levels of me, which I was a bit hiding probably. I don't know exactly what's the reason for that, but for sure I will discover in the next years after this residency. But definitely I'm more open to be more confident in terms of being more fragile in a way as well, more like sensible and more just more open in general. Yeah, this totally happened. I actually know exactly when it happened. It's connected with my body change, but not. But probably it's more like, oh, I want to show how I change. But no, it's more like I still don't recognize myself so much. Sometimes if I wake up before my alarm clock and I go to the toilet and then there's a mirror, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's me. So I think in my artworks and these videos, I think I'm watching myself, and I want to watch myself a lot, because that's why I started to do in the last months many selfies. I wasn't doing much selfies before, but now I'm like doing selfies all the time. Then I'm checking these selfies and I'm like, okay, I need to process and get my new me in a way. So I think that's why I'm shifting this camera often in the 360 space. So first, we are here in this space, and that's this person. This person is me. Okay, yeah, this is me. Okay. So I'm calming myself down in a way and watching this new person and trying to get us to know this person. In a way it's a different person, and I still haven't accepted it so much. She so much. So I think it's a process of reinventing my own identity, and it sounds maybe very logical that you change, you're now different, you have less kilos, but it's very much influencing the identity. That video is like actually me walking first time with umbrella, and this video is actually I really like to see it, because I watch it like many times, because it's like I see how this random object, which is everyday object, umbrella, but I was playing with it like an hour or something, and I was so excited about just having an umbrella and protecting myself from the rain. For me it was like magic, the rain is not touching me, this is magic. So in a way now, still as an artist, when I find some object which is unfamiliar to me, or maybe even in some familiar objects I try to use them in different way, or just look at them really closely and see that I never actually saw it so close, and it can be really interesting. Just a random object, a fork, for example. Wow, it's a fork, like, wow. It gives me inspiration, the fork as well. But yeah, this 360 camera, it's amazing technology for me because it frees you, it gives you space, and as a video artist or a filmmaker, it gives you many different views also in post-production, because it records everything, and then in the post-production you can play with the view. So it gives me freedom, and I think that's why, because it's so freeing in a way, it's so interesting for me to use. It can be very creative. I see things a bit different now, Also, just so many things. Maybe I can say one detail from life, When I walk around now, also how I move is different. When I go to the bus, I'm one person less, because 60 kilo is another person, when you go to the bus. And when I sit on the chair, before that I was always worried that maybe I'm too much on the other person's side, and I was worried about taking too much space, and I still think I'm taking too much space, but now maybe I'm not taking too much space. It's just these little details, and it's influencing a lot the whole movement in space, the whole identity, because people, when you're overweight, they often judge you. I had experience with that. But now, I think it's influencing many areas in my life. And as far as the soul thing, I would say it's really much connected with me being more honest. I think I wasn't honest, and now I just say whatever I think. Just like if I'm bothered by something, I'm like, okay, stop, I'm bothered by that. I never did that before, and I don't know why now this happened, but something triggered in my brain. Maybe it's running, I don't know. But my life is now completely different in practical terms. This running and taking, now I say to myself, I deserve 1 hour a day for just myself. And this is running, for example, or lifting weights or yoga or whatever. Everybody deserves an hour a day for themselves, or just being in a room in silence, being quiet, meditate. I think everybody should tell themselves to have 1 hour, just leave me alone. I deserve this, because we need to take care. Time in our hands, and I think time is the most valuable thing, more than money, more than anything. It's just time.